The morning rush at Winnie's diner moved like clockwork. The bell above the door jingled as customers hurried in. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, and Maya Roberts glided between tables with the skill of someone who had done this dance 1,000 times before. "The usual, Mr. Parker?" Maya asked, already pouring coffee for the older gentleman who sat at the same corner booth every Tuesday. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her green apron had a small coffee stain near the pocket. "You know me too well," he replied with a smile that crinkled the edges of his eyes. "And maybe one of those blueberry muffins today? Feeling wild?" Maya laughed softly. It was the kind of easy laughter that made customers feel at home. That was one of the reasons Winnie kept her on despite being late twice last week. Maya had a way with people that couldn't be taught. As the morning shifted into afternoon, Maya moved through her tasks with practiced ease. Take orders, deliver food, clear tables, smile, repeat. The rhythm of the diner was as familiar to her as her own heartbeat, predictable in its chaos. "Maya, can you cover for Liz tomorrow night?" Winnie called from behind the counter. The older woman was counting receipts, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. "Her kid's got some school thing." Maya hesitated for just a second, her mind quickly shuffling through the silent promises she'd made to herself about tomorrow night. But bills didn't pay themselves, and Gran's medication wasn't getting any cheaper. "Sure thing, Winnie," she answered, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I can do that." By the time her shift ended, the sky outside had turned a deep blue. Maya's feet ached as she counted her tips in the back room. Not bad, not great either, but it would help with the electric bill that had been sitting on her kitchen table for 3 days now. She pulled off her apron and grabbed her worn backpack from the hook. "Night, Winnie," she called, waving to the cook, Hector, who was scrubbing down the grill. The cool evening air felt good on her face as she stepped outside. Other people her age were probably heading to happy hours or meeting friends for dinner. At 26, Maya should have been doing the same. Instead, she turned left and began the familiar walk home. The street lamps flickered on as she passed the old bookshop, closed now for almost a year. The corner grocery, where she'd pick up something cheap for dinner. And finally, the abandoned music school. Maya slowed her steps as she approached the building. The Westwood School of Music had once been grand, with tall windows and stone steps leading to heavy wooden doors. Now those windows were boarded up and faded no trespassing signs hung crookedly on the walls. The building had stood empty for 3 years, caught in some legal battle that left it in limbo. Not quite condemned, but certainly not thriving. Maya glanced around. The street was empty. With practiced movements, she slipped around to the side of the building, to a small door half hidden by overgrown bushes. The lock had been broken long ago, and Maya had discovered that a firm push in just the right spot made it open with a reluctant groan. Inside, the air was dusty and still. Maya pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight, illuminating a narrow hallway. Her footsteps echoed softly as she made her way through the building. She knew every creaky floorboard, every turn in the corridor. This path had become as familiar as the route from her apartment to the diner. 3 minutes of careful navigation brought her to her destination, the recital hall. Unlike the rest of the building, which had been stripped of anything valuable, this room still held its treasure. In the center, covered with a sheet Maya had brought months ago, stood a grand piano. She approached it slowly, almost reverently, and pulled away the sheet. In the beam of her phone's light, the piano gleamed, its black surface collecting dust everywhere except where Maya's hands had worn it clean. She ran her fingers over the keys without pressing down, feeling their cool smoothness. Then she placed her backpack on the floor and pulled out 3 battery-powered lanterns. She positioned them around the piano, creating a small circle of warm light in the vast darkness of the room. From another pocket in her bag came a small notebook, its pages worn from use. Maya sat down on the bench, her back automatically straightening, her hands finding their position above the keys from muscle memory that went back to childhood. For a moment, she just sat there, breathing in the silence. Then she began to play. The first notes floated into the empty space, tentative at first, like someone testing cold water with their toe. But soon the music flowed freely, filling the abandoned hall with life. Maya's fingers danced across the keys, creating melodies that spoke of longing and hope and something deeper that had no name. As she played, the diner disappeared. The ache in her feet faded. The worry about bills and Gran's health and making rent next month, all of it melted away. There was only the music rising and falling with her breath. This was Maya's secret. By day, she was just another waitress struggling to make ends meet. But here in this forgotten place, she transformed. The music pouring from her fingers wasn't the kind you'd hear from someone who'd taken a few lessons as a child. This was the playing of someone with rare talent, with years of training, with a gift. She moved from classical pieces into her own compositions. These were the truest expression of herself, melodies that had come to her in dreams or while walking home or during quiet moments at the diner. She'd never written them down properly with all the correct notations. Instead, her notebook contained rough sketches, enough to remind her of the music that lived inside her. Time disappeared when Maya played. Sometimes she stayed for 20 minutes, sometimes for hours. Tonight, she lost herself completely, working through a new piece that had been forming in her mind for weeks. It was almost midnight when she finally stopped, her fingers hovering above the keys as the last note faded into silence. The spell broken, reality rushed back in. Gran would be wondering where she was. She needed to pick up groceries before the store closed. And tomorrow would bring another long shift at the diner. With careful movements, Maya covered the piano again and turned off her lanterns. The darkness returned, but the music lingered in her mind, a private light she carried with her. Outside, the night had grown cooler. Maya pulled her jacket tighter and hurried toward the grocery store. As she walked, a memory surfaced, her mother sitting beside her on their old upright piano, guiding Maya's small hands over the keys. "You have a gift," her mother had said. "Someday you'll share it with the world." That was before the accident. Before Maya had to drop out of music school to care for Gran. Before dreams of concert halls were replaced by double shifts and tip jars. The grocery store was about to close. Maya quickly grabbed bread, eggs, and some fruit on sale. The cashier yawned as he rang up her items. "Long day?" Maya asked with a sympathetic smile. "You have no idea," he replied, not knowing that Maya understood completely. 20 minutes later, she climbed the stairs to the small apartment she shared with her grandmother. The TV was on, casting blue light across the living room where Gran had fallen asleep in her armchair. Maya gently covered her with a blanket before putting away the groceries. In the kitchen, she found the pill organizer and checked that Gran had taken her evening medication. The orange bottle of heart pills was getting low. Maya made a mental note to call about the refill tomorrow. After a quick shower, Maya finally made her way to bed. Her tiny room hardly fit more than a twin bed and a dresser. But on the wall hung her most precious possession, a framed photo of her at 16, standing beside a piano on a real stage, holding a trophy from a youth competition. The girl in the picture had bright eyes full of possibilities. As she drifted toward sleep, Maya's fingers moved slightly, playing invisible keys. In her dreams, she wasn't hiding in an abandoned building. She was performing on a gleaming stage and the music soared without limits. But when morning came, she would put on her green apron again. The secret pianist would become invisible, hidden behind the waitress's practiced smile, until night fell and she could return to the abandoned music school where her true self lived. What no one at the diner knew, what no one in her current life had any reason to suspect, was that the quiet waitress who refilled their coffee cups had once been called a prodigy, that her hands could create magic, that beneath her ordinary exterior lived an extraordinary talent waiting to be discovered again. Rain pounded against the windows of Winnie's diner, turning the evening crowd into a sea of damp coats and dripping umbrellas. Maya balanced 3 plates along her arm as she weaved between tables, smiling despite the chaos. "Sorry about the wait," she said, setting down a stack of pancakes in front of a teenager who had his textbook spread across the table. "Studying hard?" The boy nodded without looking up. "Physics test tomorrow." "You've got this," Maya encouraged, moving on to her next table. By 8 o'clock, the rain had become a downpour. Thunder rumbled overhead and the lights in the diner flickered once, twice, causing a collective intake of breath from the customers. Maya glanced at the clock. Another hour until closing, and then she could head home. Tonight wasn't a piano night. Gran hadn't been feeling well this morning, and Maya wanted to get back to check on her. The bell above the door jingled, and a gust of wet wind blew in along with a man Maya had never seen before. He stood just inside the entrance, shaking water from his coat and looking around the diner with curious eyes. Everything about him seemed out of place, from his expensive-looking shoes to the way he carried himself. Tall and confident. "Sit anywhere you like," Maya called over her shoulder as she refilled coffee cups. The man chose a small table by the window and settled in, placing a leather bag beside him on the bench. When Maya approached with a menu, he smiled up at her, his eyes warm despite his drenched appearance. "Quite a storm out there," he said, accepting the menu with a nod of thanks. "Sure is. Coffee to warm you up?" "Please." Maya returned with a steaming mug and her order pad. "Know what you'd like?" "Just the coffee for now, thanks." He wrapped his hands around the mug, studying her for a moment longer than was comfortable. "I'm Leon, by the way." Maya wasn't used to customers introducing themselves. "Maya," she replied automatically, then gestured toward the menu. "Take your time. I'll check back." For the next half hour, the man, Leon, sipped his coffee and watched the rain while tapping occasionally on his phone. Maya noticed he wore an expensive watch that caught the light when he moved his wrist. Probably some businessman caught in the storm, she thought. The diner occasionally attracted people like him, those who'd taken a wrong turn or needed a quick bite before heading somewhere more suited to their tax bracket. At closing time, only Leon remained, still nursing the same cup of coffee that must have gone cold an hour ago. "We're closing up now," Maya said, approaching his table with the check. "Of course." He glanced outside where the rain continued to fall in sheets. "Doesn't look like it's letting up." He paid the bill, adding a tip that made Maya's eyebrows rise slightly. "Thanks," she said, genuinely surprised. "Do you need me to call you a cab?" Leon shook his head. "I think I'll wait a few minutes to see if it eases off. I'm only going a few blocks." Winnie, wiping down the counter, called over to Maya. "You go on home, honey. I'll finish up here. Your grand's probably waiting." Maya hesitated, glancing at Leon. It seemed rude to leave a customer sitting alone while they closed up. "It's fine," Leon said, apparently reading her concern. "I'll head out as soon as there's a break in the rain." "Thanks, Winnie." "See you tomorrow," Maya said, untying her apron. She grabbed her umbrella from the back room and pulled her jacket hood up, preparing to face the storm. Outside, the rain stung her face as she hurried down the street. Her shoes were soaked through within minutes, and the wind kept trying to turn her umbrella inside out. As she passed the old music school, Maya slowed. Through the rain, she thought she saw a light flickering inside one of the windows. Her heart jumped to her throat. Had someone broken in? What if they found her piano? Without thinking twice, Maya ducked through her secret entrance. The interior was dark and quiet, but she could have sworn she'd seen something. Using her phone's flashlight, she made her way through the familiar corridors toward the recital hall. As she approached, she heard it. The unmistakable sound of raindrops hitting the roof amplified in the large space. But there was something else, too. A creaking floorboard. Someone was there. Maya froze, her light pointed at the floor. Should she run? Call the police? "Hello?" A voice called out, startling her so badly that she nearly dropped her phone. "Is someone there?" The voice was male and didn't sound threatening, but Maya remained still, her pulse hammering in her ears. A beam of light swept across the room, landing on her. Maya squinted against the brightness. "I thought I heard something," the voice continued. "I took shelter from the rain. I hope you don't mind." As her eyes adjusted, Maya could make out a figure standing near her piano. The protective sheet had been removed, exposing the instrument. Anger flared in her chest. This was her private space, her secret. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, stepping forward. The figure lowered his flashlight, and in the dim glow that bounced off the walls, Maya recognized him. It was Leon, the customer from the diner. His expensive coat was draped over one of the dusty chairs, and he stood beside her piano with an expression of wonder on his face. "I heard music," he said simply. "Earlier today, before the storm, I was walking by and I heard the most incredible piano playing coming from this building." Maya's mouth went dry. Someone had heard her? All these months she'd thought she was completely alone. "That's impossible," she said. "This place has been abandoned for years." Leon smiled, and there was something knowing in his eyes. "Not completely abandoned, it seems." He gestured to the piano. "I'm sorry if I intruded. I had to see where that music was coming from. Then the storm hit and the door was unlocked, so—" "You shouldn't be here," Maya said firmly, though her voice trembled slightly. "No one should be here. It's trespassing," says the person who clearly comes here regularly. Leon pointed out gently, nodding toward the lanterns positioned around the piano, the sheet that had been carefully placed to protect the instrument. Maya didn't have a response to that. They were both trespassers. "Are you the one who plays?" Leon asked after a moment of silence. "It was Chopin, wasn't it? The nocturne in E-flat major, and then something else, something I didn't recognize." The fact that he could identify the piece she'd been playing sent a chill down Maya's spine. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said automatically, the denial falling from her lips before she could stop it. Leon raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Instead, he reached down to the piano bench and picked up something Maya hadn't noticed was missing from her backpack, her notebook of compositions. "This is fascinating," he said, holding it carefully, almost reverently. "These are original pieces, aren't they? Your work?" "Give me that," Maya said, stepping forward quickly and snatching the notebook from his hands. "That's private?" Instead of being offended, Leon smiled. "They're beautiful. At least what I could understand from your notes. You're not classically trained in composition, are you?" Maya clutched the notebook to her chest. "What do you want?" "To know who you are," Leon said simply. "The person who plays like that. It's rare, you know. Very rare to hear that kind of emotion, that raw talent." "I'm nobody," Maya said. "Just a person who likes to play sometimes. And now I need to go. My grandmother is waiting for me." She started backing toward the door, suddenly uncomfortable with the intensity of Leon's gaze. "Wait," he called. "I didn't mean to scare you. I'm a music producer. I work with artists, help them develop their sound, their careers." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, holding it out to her. "Leon Winters, Blue Note Records." Maya didn't take the card. "I'm not an artist. I'm a waitress." "You can be both," Leon said, still holding out the card. "Just think about it. Music like yours deserves to be heard." When Maya still didn't move, he placed the card on top of the piano and stepped back, giving her space. "I'll be in town for a few days. I'm staying at the Hotel Regent. If you change your mind, call me." He gathered his coat and moved toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. "Whatever you decide, thank you for the music I heard today. It's been a long time since something moved me like that." And then he was gone, his footsteps fading down the corridor. Maya stood frozen in place, her notebook still clutched tightly to her chest. Her sanctuary had been discovered. Her secret was out, or at least part of it was. Leon didn't know who she was, didn't know that the waitress who had served him coffee and the pianist who had moved him were one and the same. She should feel relieved about that at least. But as she slowly gathered her things and covered the piano once more, all she felt was a strange mixture of fear and something else, something that felt dangerously like hope. The business card gleamed on top of the piano, and Maya stared at it for a long moment before finally picking it up and slipping it into her pocket, alongside her precious notebook. She wouldn't call him, of course. She couldn't. But somehow throwing the card away felt impossible too. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The streets glistened under the streetlights as Maya made her way home, her mind playing and replaying the encounter until it felt like a dream. But the weight of the card in her pocket reminded her that it had been very real. For the first time in years, someone had heard her play. And not just anyone, someone who understood what they were hearing. 3 days had passed since the night of the storm, and Maya had not returned to the abandoned music school. Leon's business card remained in her jacket pocket, untouched but not forgotten. Every time her fingers brushed against it, she felt a strange flutter in her chest, part anxiety, part something else she couldn't quite name. The morning rush at Winnie's diner was in full swing when Maya noticed him. Leon sat at the same window table, reading something on his tablet while sipping coffee. Her stomach dropped. Had he figured out who she was? "Coffee refill?" Maya asked, approaching his table with the pot, keeping her voice casual despite her racing heart. Leon looked up and smiled politely, the kind of smile you'd give any server. No recognition flickered in his eyes. "Yes, please." As she poured, Maya studied him from the corner of her eye. In daylight, she could see he was older than she'd first thought, maybe mid-40s with threads of silver in his dark hair. His clothes were simple but expensive looking, and he wore no wedding ring. "Anything else I can get you?" she asked, eager to move on before he could look at her too closely. "Just the check when you have a moment." Maya nodded and hurried back to the counter, relief washing over her. He didn't know. The dim light and her rain-soaked appearance that night had provided enough of a disguise. The rest of her shift passed uneventfully, but Maya found herself glancing at Leon's empty table throughout the day. Why had he come back to the diner? Was he hoping to recognize the pianist he'd encountered? By afternoon, the thought of Leon and his offer had been pushed aside by a more immediate concern. Winnie was pacing near the register, her face tight with worry. "Everything okay?" Maya asked as she counted out her tips. Winnie sighed heavily. "The charity event for the children's hospital. It's this Friday, and Hector just told me his cousin's band canceled. They were supposed to provide the music." She rubbed her temples. "People bought tickets expecting live music. I don't know what to do." Maya had almost forgotten about the event. Every year, Winnie hosted a special dinner at the diner to raise money for the local children's hospital, where her grandson had once been treated. It was the biggest night of the year for the small restaurant. "Can't you find another band?" Maya suggested. "On 3 days' notice?" "Not likely." Winnie shook her head. "I'll have to use a playlist, I guess." "It's not the same, though." Maya nodded sympathetically and continued counting her tips, but a thought had taken root in her mind. A dangerous, terrifying thought. That night, as she helped Gran into bed, Maya found herself distracted. The older woman noticed immediately. "You're a million miles away tonight," Gran said, patting Maya's hand. "What's on your mind, sweetie?" Maya sat on the edge of the bed. "Just thinking about the diner. Winnie's in a bind with the charity event this Friday." "The one for the children's hospital? You mentioned it last week." "Yeah, the band canceled, and she's really upset about it." Gran studied her face. "And you're thinking of offering to help?" Sometimes Maya forgot how well her grandmother knew her. "I was thinking about it," she admitted. "But I haven't played in front of people in years. Not since the accident," Gran finished for her. "But that doesn't mean you can't." Maya looked down at her hands, a waitress's hands now, not a pianist's. Calloused from carrying hot plates instead of practicing scales. "I don't know if I can anymore." Gran's weathered hand covered hers. "That's not true. I hear you playing in your dreams sometimes, humming melodies." "The music never left you, Maya. You just locked it away." Tears pricked at Maya's eyes. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Of course you are," Gran said simply. "But being scared doesn't mean you shouldn't try." Later, lying in bed, Maya pulled Leon's business card from her jacket and stared at it in the dim light. A professional music producer had thought her playing was special. Maybe, just maybe, she could do this. Not for Leon or a recording contract, but for Winnie, for the children's hospital, for herself. The next morning, Maya arrived at the diner half an hour early. Winnie was already there, going over the event plans with Hector. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Maya asked, her heart pounding so hard she was sure they could hear it. Winnie looked up, surprised. "Sure, honey. What's on your mind?" Maya took a deep breath. "I can play at the event on Friday." "The piano, I mean." Winnie and Hector exchanged confused looks. "You play piano?" Winnie asked. "I used to." I was pretty good." The understatement made Maya's stomach clench, but she couldn't bring herself to say more. Winnie looked skeptical. "Pretty good is one thing, but this is a charity event, honey. People are paying good money." "I know. I wouldn't offer if I didn't think I could do it." Maya forced herself to meet Winnie's eyes. "Just give me a chance." "There's a piano at the community center where you're holding the event, right? Let me try it out, and if you don't think I'm good enough, no harm done." After a moment's consideration, Winnie nodded. "All right. We can stop by there after your shift today." "But Maya?" She fixed her with a stern look. "If this is a joke, it's not funny. This event means a lot to me." "I know," Maya said quietly. "It's not a joke." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she served customers, and she made stupid mistakes. Mixing up orders, dropping a plate, forgetting to refill water glasses. By the time her shift ended, her nerves were so frayed she nearly changed her mind about the whole thing. But then she thought of Gran's words. The music never left you, and she knew she had to try. The community center was quiet when they arrived. An older man at the front desk recognized Winnie and waved them through to the main hall where Friday's event would take place. Round tables were already set up, waiting to be decorated, and at the front of the room stood a small stage with an upright piano. Maya approached it slowly, running her fingers over the wooden top. It wasn't a grand like her secret piano, but it would do. She sat down on the bench, adjusting it slightly, and placed her hands on the keys. For a moment, she couldn't move. What if she failed? What if years of playing in secret hadn't prepared her for this? Winnie and the desk attendant were watching, waiting. Maya closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first notes were hesitant, her fingers stiff with anxiety. But then, as always happened when she played, the music took over. She fell into Chopin's Nocturne, the same piece Leon had heard her playing, letting the familiar melody wash over her. Her fingers remembered what her mind had tried to forget, moving across the keys with growing confidence. She forgot where she was, forgot that people were watching. There was only the music, flowing through her like water breaking through a dam. When the final note faded, Maya opened her eyes. Winnie stood frozen, her mouth slightly open. The desk attendant had moved closer, his eyes wide with astonishment. "Good Lord," Winnie whispered. "Maya, where did you learn to play like that?" Maya's cheeks flushed. "I studied piano since I was little. I was going to music school before my parents died, and I had to drop out to take care of Gran. And you've been serving coffee in my diner all this time?" Winnie shook her head in disbelief. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" Maya shrugged, uncomfortable with the question. How could she explain that playing in public had become impossible after her loss? That music had become something too personal, too painful to share? "So can I play on Friday?" she asked instead. Winnie laughed, a sound of pure delight. "Can you play?" "Honey, you'll be the main attraction. Wait until everyone hears you." The event was transformed overnight. What had been a simple charity dinner became an evening of piano and fine dining. Winnie spread the word to all her regular customers, promising a special musical performance that shouldn't be missed. Maya spent every free moment practicing. At night, she returned to the abandoned music school, playing for hours until her fingers ached and her back screamed in protest. During the day, she served coffee with a nervous smile, jumping every time the bell above the door rang, half expecting to see Leon walk in again. He didn't return to the diner, and Maya found herself oddly disappointed. Part of her wanted him to be there on Friday, to see her play openly for the first time in years. But mostly she was relieved. This performance was for her, for Winnie, for the diner community, not for a record producer or a potential career she wasn't sure she even wanted. By Friday evening, the community center had been transformed. White tablecloths covered the round tables, each adorned with a small vase of flowers. String lights hung from the ceiling, giving the room a warm, intimate glow. A handmade sign near the entrance welcomed guests to Winnie's Diner Presents, a charity evening for Children's Hospital. As people began to arrive, regular customers, hospital staff, community members, Maya peeked out from the small back room where she'd been nervously pacing. Her simple black dress felt foreign after years of wearing jeans and t-shirts. Gran sat at a table near the front, proudly telling anyone who would listen that her granddaughter was the pianist everyone had come to hear. "Ready?" Winnie asked, appearing beside Maya with an encouraging smile. Maya's throat felt tight with anxiety, but she nodded. "Ready as I'll ever be." "You're going to be wonderful," Winnie assured her, squeezing her arm gently. As Maya took her place at the piano, a hush fell over the room. Faces turned toward her, familiar faces from the diner, people who knew her only as the quiet waitress who refilled their coffee cups and remembered how they liked their eggs. Now they would know her differently. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the bench. Then, taking a deep breath, Maya began to play. The first notes Maya played seemed to hang in the air, fragile as glass. She had chosen Debussy's Clair de Lune, a piece that began softly, giving her trembling fingers time to steady themselves. Her eyes remained fixed on the keys, too afraid to look at the audience. Slowly, the familiar calm of playing washed over her. Her shoulders relaxed, her breathing deepened, and the music began to flow more naturally. When she finally dared to glance up, she saw not judgment or criticism on the faces before her, but wonder. Mr. Parker, her Tuesday morning regular, leaned forward in his chair, coffee forgotten. The young physics student had put down his phone to listen. Winnie stood at the back of the room, hands clasped together, eyes shining with pride. And there, near the door, Maya's heart stuttered, stood Leon. He must have seen the flyers Winnie had posted around town. His expression was unreadable from this distance, but the fact that he was here at all sent a ripple of nerves through her. Maya redirected her focus to the keys beneath her fingers. The music swelled, filling the small community center with emotion that had been bottled up for too long. This wasn't just Debussy anymore. It was grief for her parents, love for her grandmother, gratitude for Winnie, and every other feeling she had channeled into her private playing over the years. When the final chord faded, there was a moment of complete silence. Then applause erupted, startling in its intensity. People rose to their feet, their faces alight with genuine appreciation. Gran dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, beaming through her tears. "Thank you," Maya said softly into the microphone Winnie had set up. That was Clair de Lune by Claude Debussy. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, formal and nervous. She moved into her next piece, a Chopin waltz that danced through the room, lightening the mood. By the third song, Maya had found her rhythm, her confidence growing with each note. For her final selection before the dinner break, she chose one of her own compositions, a melody that had come to her during long walks home from the diner, capturing both melancholy and hope in its gentle progression. She didn't announce it as her own work. That felt too vulnerable, too exposed. But as she played, she noticed Leon leaning against the wall, his head tilted slightly, listening with intense focus. He knew. Of course he knew. When she finished the set, the applause was even more enthusiastic than before. Winnie stepped forward, taking the microphone. Wasn't she amazing, folks? Let's hear it again for our very own Maya Roberts. More applause. Maya's cheeks burned as she stood and gave a small, awkward bow. Now please enjoy your dinner. Maya will play again during dessert. As people turned their attention to the food being served, Maya escaped to the small back room, her heart pounding. She had done it. She had played in public for the first time in years, and the sky hadn't fallen. In fact, it had felt right, like returning to a place she'd forgotten she loved. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Maya opened it to find Winnie holding a plate of food. "Thought you might be hungry," she said, stepping inside. "Maya, that was incredible. Why on earth didn't you tell me you could play like that?" Maya accepted the plate gratefully. "It's complicated. After my parents died, playing just became too painful, too personal." Winnie nodded slowly. "Well, I'm glad you found your way back to it. You've got a real gift. Thanks, Winnie. And thanks for trusting me with this." "Oh, honey, I should be thanking you. People are already asking if you'll play again next month. We could make it a regular thing. Maybe increase business at the diner, too." The suggestion sent a jolt of panic through Maya. "I don't know about that. This was just to help out." Winnie patted her arm. "No pressure. Just think about it." She headed back toward the door. "Oh, and there's someone who'd like to speak with you when you have a minute." "A man named Leon? Says he knows you." Maya's stomach dropped. "Oh, okay, I'll come out in a bit." After Winnie left, Maya sat with her untouched food, her mind racing. What would she say to Leon? What did he want? She wasn't ready to think about record deals or music careers. Tonight had been overwhelming enough. When she finally ventured out, the main room was buzzing with conversation as people enjoyed their meals. Several diners smiled and nodded as she passed, a few reaching out to touch her arm and murmur compliments. It felt surreal, this new way people were looking at her. She found Leon by the dessert table, examining a slice of Hector's famous apple pie. "You wanted to talk to me?" Maya asked, her voice stiffer than she'd intended. Leon looked up, his eyes warm with genuine admiration. "That was beautiful playing." "Thank you." Maya fidgeted with the bracelet on her wrist, a nervous habit from childhood. "So you're the waitress from Winnie's and the mysterious pianist from the abandoned music school. I had no idea. Not many people did. Until tonight." Leon set down his plate. "Your own composition at the end there. It was even better with a proper piano and acoustics. Have you written many pieces?" Maya shrugged, uncomfortable with the question. "A few. Just for myself." "They deserve to be heard," Leon said, his voice gentle but insistent. "You deserve to be heard." Before Maya could respond, a young woman approached them, her phone in hand. "Excuse me, are you the pianist? Could I get a picture? My mom loves classical music, and I want to show her your performance." "Oh, Maya stammered, caught off guard. "I took a video," the woman continued, showing her phone screen where Maya could see herself at the piano, playing her own composition. "Do you mind if I post it?" "It's really beautiful." A cold wave of anxiety washed over Maya. A video? Posted online? The thought of strangers watching her play, judging her, commenting on her performance when it was too much. I'd rather you didn't, she began. But the woman was already backing away with a smile. Thanks. I'll tag the diner too. Great publicity. Leon watched the exchange with concern. Are you okay? You've gone pale. Maya felt like she couldn't breathe. The room suddenly seemed too small, too crowded. I need some air, she managed to say, then turned and headed for the side exit. Outside, the cool night air helped clear her head. Maya leaned against the brick wall, taking deep breaths. She had agreed to play tonight for people she knew in a small, controlled environment. She wasn't prepared for videos, for publicity, for becoming some local sensation. The door opened and Leon stepped out, his expression concerned. Maya? I didn't mean to upset you in there. It's not you, she said, wrapping her arms around herself against the chill. It's just a lot. I've spent years keeping this part of myself private, and now someone's putting it online for the world to see. Leon nodded, understanding in his eyes. It can be overwhelming when something personal becomes public. But Maya, your talent is extraordinary. People connect with it. That woman wasn't looking to exploit you, she was moved by your music. Maybe, Maya admitted, but I don't know if I'm ready for that. They stood in silence for a moment, the muffled sounds of the event continuing inside. Can I ask you something? Leon said finally. Why did you stop? From your playing, it's clear you had serious training. Maya looked up at the stars, visible now that they were away from the city center. My parents died in a car accident 6 years ago. They were coming to see me perform at a competition. The words felt rusty, unpracticed. She rarely spoke about this. After that, I couldn't play without thinking of them, without feeling responsible somehow. And then Gran got sick and I needed to work, so she shrugged. Music school dreams got put aside. Leon didn't offer empty condolences or platitudes which Maya appreciated. Instead, he asked, and now? After tonight? I don't know, she answered honestly. Part of me remembered how much I love it, how it feels to connect with an audience. But another part is terrified of going back to that world, of being vulnerable that way. You don't have to decide anything tonight, Leon said, but I want you to know that my offer still stands. If you ever want to explore what your music could become, I'd be honored to help. The door opened again and Winnie poked her head out. There you are. People are asking when you'll play again. We're serving dessert now. I'll be right there, Maya promised. As Winnie disappeared back inside, Leon pulled another business card from his wallet. Here, in case you lost the first one. I'm in town until Monday. This time Maya took the card deliberately, tucking it into her dress pocket. Thank you for coming tonight, for listening. Thank you for playing, he replied simply, and held the door for her as they went back inside. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Maya played during dessert, this time looking out at the audience as she did. She saw Gran wiping away tears, Winnie beaming with pride, regular customers watching with newfound respect. Something had shifted tonight, not just for them, but within her. When the last guest had left and they were cleaning up, Winnie approached with an envelope. We raised twice as much as last year, she said, her voice thick with emotion. The hospital director said to thank you personally. Your music made all the difference. Maya felt a lump in her throat. I'm glad I could help. And this is for you. Winnie pressed the envelope into her hand. From the tip jar we put by the piano, people were very generous. The envelope was heavy with cash, more than Maya usually made in 2 weeks at the diner. I can't take this, she protested. You earned it, Winnie insisted, and there's something else. She hesitated. The hospital director asked if you'd consider playing at their donor gala next month. It's a bigger event, important people. They'd pay you properly. Maya's first instinct was to refuse immediately, but instead she found herself saying, Can I think about it? Winnie smiled knowingly. Of course. No rush. She patted Maya's cheek affectionately. You surprised everyone tonight, Maya. Most of all yourself, I think. Later, as Maya helped her grandmother into their apartment, Gran asked, So, will you play for the hospital gala? I don't know, Maya admitted, setting her purse down on the kitchen counter. The envelope of tips and Leon's business card peeked out from inside. It's a big step. Gran eased herself onto the couch with a knowing smile. Bigger than tonight was? Different, Maya said after a moment's thought. Tonight was for Winnie, for the diner. The gala would be... She struggled to articulate her fears. would be stepping back into the world you left behind. Gran finished for her. The world you were meant for. Maya sat beside her grandmother, suddenly exhausted. What if I'm not ready? Gran took her hand, examining the fingers that had created such beautiful music hours earlier. Ready or not, the music found its way back to you tonight. Maybe it's time to stop running from it. As Maya lay in bed that night, too wired to sleep despite her exhaustion, she couldn't stop thinking about how it had felt to play for an audience again. The connection, the energy, the way the music had flowed through her more powerfully than it ever had in the abandoned music school. Her phone buzzed with a message from a number she didn't recognize. It was a link to a video. With trembling fingers, Maya tapped it open. There she was on screen playing her own composition. The caption read, "Amazing hidden talent at charity event." Does anyone know who she is? The video already had over 100 comments and was being shared across platforms. Maya's heart raced as she scrolled through the comments. This is incredible. Who is she? Getting Einaudi vibes, but with something totally original. Is there more? I need a full album of this. The secret pianist was secret no longer. The weekend after the charity event passed in a blur of confusion and change. Maya arrived at the diner on Saturday morning to find a small crowd waiting outside. People who had seen the video and hoped to meet the secret pianist. Winnie, ever the businesswoman, had put a sign in the window. Home of Maya Roberts. Piano virtuoso, try our new Pianist special breakfast. Really, Winnie? Maya had whispered, mortified as she tied on her apron. What? Business is up 30% already. Winnie replied with a wink. Throughout her shift, Maya endured stares, whispers, and countless questions from customers. Some asked when she would play next. Others wanted to know her life story, and a few even requested autographs on napkins. Just sign it, Winnie had urged when Maya balked at the first request. It makes them happy. By Sunday, the video had over 10,000 views and had been shared by a popular classical music page. Comments flooded in from around the country, and Maya's phone buzzed constantly with notifications as people somehow found her social media accounts, which she'd barely used in years. You're famous, Hector teased as Maya hid in the kitchen during her break, trying to make sense of it all. I'm not famous, she protested. It's just internet craziness. It'll die down, but it didn't die down. If anything, interest grew. A local newspaper reporter showed up at the diner on Monday asking for an interview. Maya politely declined, only to learn that Winnie had happily provided quotes about her star employee with the magic hands. Through it all, Leon's business card sat on Maya's bedside table, untouched. He had texted once, thinking about your music. Call when you're ready to talk. No pressure. Each night, Maya's finger hovered over his contact, but she never called. The hospital gala invitation had become more formal, an actual letter delivered to the diner, offering a surprising amount of money for a 30-minute performance. Maya carried it in her apron pocket, the deadline for responding growing closer each day. It was Gran who finally forced the issue. 5 days after the charity event. You need to decide, she said as they ate dinner in their small kitchen. This isn't going away, Maya. Maya pushed her food around her plate. I know, I don't know what I want. Yes, you do, Gran said with surprising firmness. You're just afraid to admit it. Maya looked up, startled by her grandmother's tone. For 6 years, I've watched you give up your dreams to take care of me, Gran continued. Working double shifts, coming home exhausted, sneaking off to play piano in an abandoned building because you couldn't bear to give it up completely. I never regretted it, Maya said softly. You needed me, and you needed music. Gran reached across the table to take Maya's hand. But you buried it so deep, convinced yourself it was just a hobby, something private. It was easier that way, Maya admitted. Easier, yes, but not right. Gran's eyes were clear and direct. Your parents would be heartbroken to see how you've hidden your gift. The mention of her parents sent a sharp pain through Maya's chest. They died coming to hear me play. How could I just go on with music after that? Because it's who you are, Gran said simply. And they knew that better than anyone. They drove through that storm because they believed in your talent, Maya. They would never want you to silence it because of what happened. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. I'm scared, she whispered. What if I try again, really try and fail? Or worse, what if I succeed and it changes everything? The diner, you, my whole life. Change isn't always bad, Gran said gently. Sometimes it's exactly what we need. After dinner, Maya found herself walking the familiar route to the abandoned music school. The night was clear and cool, the streets quiet. Inside the building, everything was as she had left it. The covered piano, the lanterns, the dusty silence. But it felt different now. What had once been a sanctuary now felt like a hiding place. She uncovered the piano and sat on the bench, running her fingers over the keys without pressing them. The truth was, playing at the charity event had awakened something in her. The joy of sharing music, of connecting with listeners, of bringing her private world into the light. The fear was still there, but so was a new sensation. Possibility. Maya pulled out her phone and, before she could talk herself out of it, dialed Leon's number. "Maya," he answered, sounding pleased. "I was hoping you'd call." "I need to ask you something," she said, her voice steadier than she expected. "If I were to work with you, what exactly would that mean? Would I have to move away, sign some contract, change who I am?" Leon was quiet for a moment. "It would mean exploring your potential on your terms," he said finally. "You have rare talent, Maya, both as a performer and a composer. But how that develops should be your choice." "I can't leave my grandmother," she said. "She needs me here." "No one's asking you to leave," Leon assured her. "We could start small. Record some of your compositions professionally, maybe arrange a few local performances. Build an audience gradually, and if it doesn't work out, then you've lost nothing. You'll still have your music, your job at the diner, your life here." Maya took a deep breath. "I'm playing at the hospital gala next month." "That's wonderful," Leon said, genuine warmth in his voice. Would you help me prepare?" The request felt monumental, an admission that she was ready to take this seriously. "I'd be honored," Leon said simply. 2 days before the gala, Leon arrived at the community center where Maya had been practicing. He brought a small recording device and placed it on top of the piano. "Play your compositions," he said. "All of them. I want to hear everything." For 3 hours, Maya played pieces she had written over the years, some fully formed, others mere sketches of ideas. Leon listened intently, occasionally making notes, sometimes asking her to play something again. When she finished, he sat in silence for a long moment. "What?" Maya asked nervously. "Are they terrible?" Leon shook his head slowly. "They're extraordinary. Raw in places, certainly. But there's something unique in your voice. It's as though classical training met life experience and created something entirely new." Hope fluttered in Maya's chest. "Really?" "Really," Leon smiled. "I've been doing this a long time, Maya. I don't say things I don't mean." The night of the hospital gala arrived with surprising speed. The venue was much grander than the community center, a hotel ballroom with crystal chandeliers and elegantly dressed guests. A glossy black grand piano waited on a small stage, intimidating in its perfection. As Maya peeked out from behind a curtain, she spotted Gran in the front row wearing her best dress, proudly chatting with the people beside her. Winnie and Hector had come too, looking almost unrecognizable in formal wear, and there was Leon standing at the back of the room giving her an encouraging nod. "5 minutes, Ms. Roberts," a staff member told her. Maya nodded, her heart pounding. She was wearing a simple blue dress, new, bought with the charity event tips. Her hair was up, her grandmother's small pearl earrings her only jewelry. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "It's just like at the music school. Just you and the piano." But it wasn't just her and the piano anymore. It was her stepping into a future she had thought was lost to her. It was honoring her parents' memory by embracing the gift they had recognized and nurtured. It was allowing herself to be seen, truly seen for the first time in years. When they announced her name, Maya walked onto the stage with her head high. The applause was polite, curious. Many in the audience had heard about the waitress turned pianist, but few had actually heard her play. She sat at the bench, adjusted it slightly, and took a deep breath. Then, looking out at the audience, at Gran, at Winnie, at Leon, she began to play. She started with Chopin, a piece she had performed countless times in competitions as a teenager. Her fingers moved with confidence, the muscle memory still perfect after all these years. The audience leaned forward, captivated by the passion in her playing. But it was when she moved into her own compositions that the real magic happened. The first piece was inspired by the diner. The rhythm of morning rush, the quiet lulls, the steady heartbeat of everyday life transformed into music. The second was for Gran, a gentle, loving melody that spoke of resilience and quiet strength. The final piece was new, written in the week since she had called Leon. It began softly, hesitantly, like someone testing thin ice, but gradually it built, gathering courage, finding its voice until it soared with hope and possibility. When the final notes faded, there was a moment of profound silence. Then the room erupted in applause, not polite this time, but enthusiastic, genuine. People rose to their feet, some wiping away tears. As Maya stood to acknowledge the ovation, she caught Gran's eye. The older woman was beaming, her hands clasped in front of her heart. Winnie was cheering loudly enough to be heard over everyone else, and Leon was smiling with quiet satisfaction, as though he had known all along what would happen. Later, as people gathered around to congratulate her, Maya felt a strange new confidence. The fear wasn't gone entirely, perhaps it never would be, but it had been transformed into something manageable, even useful. "So," Leon said, appearing at her side as the crowd thinned. "What's next?" Maya looked around at the room, at the people still buzzing about her performance, at the life that was opening before her. "I think," she said slowly, "I'd like to record those pieces properly, see what happens." "And the diner?" Leon asked. Maya smiled. "I'm not quitting my day job just yet, but maybe I'll cut back to part-time." She glanced over at Winnie, who was happily accepting compliments about her discovery of Maya's talent. Besides, Winnie would never forgive me if I left completely. "She's already talking about piano nights at the diner," Leon laughed. Smart woman. As the evening wound down, Maya found herself standing outside the hotel looking up at the stars. Gran was inside, chatting with the hospital director about the success of the event. Leon was making calls, already setting up a recording session for the following week. And Maya? She was exactly where she needed to be. Not hiding in an abandoned building, not running from her gift, but standing at the threshold of a life that honored both her past and her future. The secret pianist was secret no more, and that, Maya realized with quiet amazement, was precisely as it should be.